Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 6 of Amorous. I know it has been about a month, maybe a little bit longer, since I last posted. I apologize for that. I had some things going on, and then I got sick, and then I had really bad allergies that made me sound like a retarded narwhal whenever I would talk, and I didn't really want to record while I sounded like that. But we're back in action. I'm excited to get back into this. I don't really remember where we were when we left off, so I guess we're going to find out. Let's see, who do we have contacts for? Oh, right, yes. Last time we did our thing with Kobe, which was weird in so many ways. And then we went and met Seth at the club, and now we're going to go have our first meeting with Seth. So let's call him up. That young feline writer seemed interesting. He said he'd be heading to the library today. Maybe I can still catch him. Ring, click. Hello? Hi, it's Sheldon from Amorous. You mentioned I should give you a call today, and since I just rolled out of bed, I figured now was as good a time as any. Sheldon? Oh, right, the interviewee. I'm glad to hear you called back. Okay, I'm okay. I'm just on my way to the library now. It's a great day for a stroll. Ooh, yipes! A loud thud on the end of the phone. A loud thud on the other end of the phone was followed by some muttering and grunting. Apparently, I distracted him in the middle of something. Was this a bad time to call? It seems like you're having some difficulties there. No. I just had a few books I'd been meaning to return before they became overdue. Though sometimes I think the only reason the library stays open is because of the fees I wind up paying. I take it you're a fairly avid reader as well? Definitely. One can't expand one's horizons enough. I'm just about to head inside. Do you want to drop by and meet me in the lobby? Sure. Let me just get reasonably decent and I'll pop right over. Oh, you never told me when the reading was. I hope we didn't miss it. Reading? Oh no. What time is it? Glancing at the clock, I saw it was a little after 10. After I mentioned it to Seth, he seemed to calm down. Ooh, sorry about that. I get a little too deep into my own head sometimes. The reading is at noon in the community room. We've got plenty of time. Good. Well, I've got nothing planned this morning, so I'll just drop by since you'll already be there. We said our goodbyes as I tried not to flinch every time I heard another book drop on the other end, and I hopped out of bed to get dressed. Despite not needing to rush, I did feel a little concerned about making him wait. I scooped up some clean clothes and got myself as close to presentable as possible. Oh man. A little worried, huh? Kobe was stumbling around the kitchen, bleary-eyed and in nothing but his underwear, as I was heading towards the door. And where are you off to in a rush? Just meeting someone. Found an interesting guy at the club last night and he invited me to an event. Oh, first date, huh? Don't get started, little bro. I heard everything that happened last night when you and your friends got back here. Okay. Have fun, but I expect a full report. I promise. We'll dish all about him later. Later's good. Right now, I need coffee and a shower. Kobe followed his beak back into the kitchen as I made my way out the front door. I honestly hadn't been to the public library in ages. Between work and Kobe's nightlife, I'd been too occupied to think about culture. Probably why I was curious about this feline. Not that my friends were dim, far from it, but they were more passionate about surfing, tanning, and chasing tail than discussing the latest popular literature. Oh wow. That kind of sucks to have friends like that. I don't think I could deal with a bunch of friends who couldn't, whose only interests seem to be sports. Anyways, last night was all about trying new things, so I figured this was another tick mark off my newest bucket list. His adorably nerdy look may have also had some influence on my choice. Oh, thinks the little kitty's adorable. True to his words, Seth had found us a couple of seats close enough to enjoy the reader, but not in immediate view. Everyone else was getting settled in, so I managed to make it to my seat with a minimum of fuss. Seth beamed at me before turning his attention back to the front of the room. Oh, so here we got Nick Kovac. Apparently he's a reader. So, the dew had settled on the lawn just outside the front door, glistening in the last few rays of moonlight before the sun crested the horizon. I didn't know what was being read or who the author was. The placard just outside the room had a few bits of information on it, but nothing that rang a bell. Seth chuckled quietly, likely due to my confused expression. His name is Nick Kovac. He's one of my favorites for a light read. Blood was the color of the clouds, and the same unwashed crimson spilled in rivulets across the floor before him. It was a body emptied of life, and a life empty of meaning. Dang, that's pretty deep. Light read? What definition of the word light are you using? Yeah, that doesn't sound very light to me. It's genre fiction. Murder mystery with a little thriller thrown in for spice. He's got a way with words that really captures the imagination. The sounds of boots rattling the windows and shaking the shutters the sounds of boots rattling the windows and shaking the shutters pulled him from his reverie. Too soon. They would be upon him, and thereafter he would join the woman he discovered upon the paving stones. Wow. It's certainly hard to not form a mental image. You've read a few of his books? All 14 in his current series. I found him midway through the second, so I got some insights I shouldn't have into the first. It ruined the mystique for me, and I haven't been able to bring myself to try reading them. 14? How many has he written in total? Oh, about 28 or so. He's prolific for sure, but that's why he does so well. 2 staccato shots rung out across the barren fields, and the pang of heat and pain radiated from his shoulder. He held secrets best left unspoken, and his pursuer meant to silence him forever. You said you were doing some research for your own story. How far along is that one? Even in the dim light, I could see a frown creasing the corners of his mouth. He sunk back into his chair for a moment before whispering his response. Honestly, not as well as I had hoped. Writing is a very private vocation, but that makes it even harder when you stare at an empty room and a blank page. I admit, I am here in part to hopefully absorb some of his ambient genius in the hopes of inspiring myself to put pen to paper. So, just like at the club, you're here trying to gain inspiration through osmosis? Somehow you make it sound more desperate than I intended. I don't mean to. That wasn't at all what I meant by it. Inspiration can be fickle, you've got to find the right source for it. This could be just as worthwhile as going, for a walk or taking a long shower. Very much so. After a good book or a good reading, I do feel much more confident and focused. Then let's just sit back and let this wash over you and see if it sparks something. He looked thoughtful for a moment, glancing between the reader and me. A smile passed over his face as he leaned in close. I have a proposition for you. Some decorum and propriety was needed, considering the number of people casting glares at the two of us from the seats in front, so I merely smiled and urged him on. I bribe you with lunch and you serve as my sounding board. No, my muse. Unemployment did certainly encourage pursuing free lunches as often as possible. That, and I was curious as to what his project was. I nodded in agreement. His smile grew even bigger as he settled back into his chair. Far worse than the iron bars and rain-sickened concrete of the cell was the knowledge that escape would be impossible. Beyond those walls, he was hunted, man and only within their icy embrace could he hope to live another day. Beyond those walls, he was a hunted man, and only within their icy embrace could he hope to live another day. Wow. Seth nudged me as as applause rolled through the room. I guess I hadn't been paying as much attention as I thought. The two of us made our way through the crowds and out to the lobby. It was there that I noticed the small wooden table with a pile of books on it and the author's picture on a stand. Seth was busy chatting with some of the other attendees, so I found a place to sit down nearby. When he finally stepped away, he made a beeline for me. Alright, there's a nice little coffee shop down the road. I've got a couple of books to grab before we go, so I can meet you there, or you can wait for me. Apparently, Seth hadn't noticed the signing table or the author heading in that direction. He did mention enjoying his books. Let's get a signed book for him. Why don't I just wait and I'll see you back here in a sec. Excellent, I'll just be a moment. Seth wandered off to the circulation desk while I maneuvered to the table. Thanks for coming, it's always nice to see a good turnout. You're welcome, first time I've been to a reading, I don't get out as much as I should. Then double thanks, it can be hard to compete with everything else out there to do. What can I do for you? My friend is a big fan of yours. Could I get a signed copy of your latest book for him? Sure, it's part of the reason I'm here. Did you have something in mind for me to write? Let's ask him to write something encouraging. He's an aspiring author himself. Could you put in some words of encouragement? Of course, just tell him not to steal my audience. I have to eat too. He chuckled and jotted down a few inspirational words before signing him name. Oh, okay. Before signing his name with a flourish. After I'd paid, I slid the book into my coat to keep it out of sight for a surprise. Thanks again for coming. I've got another reading later on in the month. I hope to see you and your friend there. I'll mention it to him. Thanks again. Back. Hopefully I didn't keep you waiting too long. Not at all. Shall we get going? Seth nodded and the two of us ducked out the front door and into the street. I had to juggle the book a little to keep it a secret, but Seth was so engrossed in talking about the reading, it wasn't too difficult. The coffee shop was a nice little place, cozy and inviting. We settled into a table after grabbing a coffee each and a scone. I barely had time to take the first bite when Seth produced a number of notebooks. My writings are a little scattered. I tend to just grab what I have handy to jot my thoughts down. Oh god, look at that. Look at that blush. He's kind of cute. It's just a little adorable, you know? What are you trying to write? Well, seems to me the first thing to do would be to get organized. You've got a bunch of bits and pieces, but have you considered what you want to do with them? I was thinking of maybe something involving the main, but I could also bring in a... That sounds like a no. Aw, you made him a little sad. I just don't quite have my thoughts together. It's not as simple as that, you know? There has to be some... Seth, no is okay. No doesn't mean there isn't something to work with. It just means you don't yet have a direction. Wasn't that the reason you wanted to do this? You're right. Sorry. It's easy to get lost in my head, I suppose. Writing seems to be a really important thing for you. What got you started? Reading, mostly. I've always been a little bookish, and, well, I enjoyed so much of my time in other people's worlds that I wanted to make some of my own. I assume you aren't just a writer, since you're still working on a book. What else do you do with your time? I'm not terribly fond of talking about it, just because it's embarrassing. Well, now you have to tell me. I'm a trust fund kid. My parents have been fairly well off financially, and they set aside a sizable sum for me when I got older. That would explain why you're able to live in town. I was sort of brought along to the city with a remarriage when I was younger, and I've also been pretty fortunate in that regard. Not to be too forward, but you don't seem terribly happy being idle. My work had eaten up quite a bit of my free time, so when that obligation vanished, I just felt kinda lost. I'm glad my little brother got me out of the house at least. He sounds like an equally interesting person, in a different way I suppose. He's a character, but I love him. We went on for a bit longer, chatting about this or that until my coffee was gone and we turned our attention to the pile of notes Seth had brought. I've got an idea. You're right in that I spend a little too much time in my own head. Maybe... Oh, excuse me. Maybe what I need is some structure. Sounds good. What did you have in mind then? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me close the window. Apparently there was a little kid crying outside. I don't know if that made it onto the recording, but it was a little distracting. Alright, sounds good. What did you have in mind then? Since I can't seem to settle on something, why don't you tell me what I should write? Really? With all your talk of muses and inspiration? I think of it as an exercise. You'll give me... Missed an L there. Grammar. Oh my god, the grammar in this game is just... It's pretty bad. I've got a lot of spelling mistakes. You'll give me a framework to build from and I write the story. It'll give me a focus and keep me from wandering. Alright, I suppose that makes some sense. Why me though? Because then we will both have some investment in the final piece. That will make it all the more likely you'll keep humoring me. Fair enough. Where should we start? At the beginning, what kind of genre should I write? Ooh, let's see. What kind of genre should we go? Sci-fi is always great. But romance, oh man, and well, sci-fi is always sometimes a little out there. Romance might be a little too heavy for this. I'm not a big fan of horror. So let's go with fantasy. Swords and sorcery have always been an enjoyable read for me. Knights, monsters, and magic all clashing in a far-off realm. Will there be damsels in distress? Maybe some heroic mythos involved? I can see some ideas. Okay, how do you see the main character? Is there some defining feature you like? Let's see. Oh, I don't like heroic heroes. Like, if that's boring. Deeply flawed or regular, but not begrudgingly evolved. That just seems like makes the hero seem like a jerk. If he's a regular person thrust into it, then it's kind of off. But deeply flawed, yeah, let's go with deeply flawed. I like complex, multifaceted characters. People who mess up but have to keep going. Something about the struggle to just get by really resonates with me. My favorite kind. Nothing like being able to explore shortcomings through that lens. Having someone for whom there are only gray options, no black or white. I'm getting some great ideas here. I told you that you'd make an excellent muse. Glad I can help. That said, I've got a question for you this time. Oh, suddenly the interviewer becomes the interviewee? My, how the tables have turned. Alright, he is definitely flirting here. Like, that's so flirtatious. Alright, it's quite the plot twist. Anyway, I was wondering, what do you plan on doing with the story after you're done? I hadn't really considered it. It's probably something I shouldn't even worry about until it's written. I think you should keep it in mind. Ponder it. I also think that you should keep those notebooks away. Let the story build itself. You'll be less inclined to overwhelm yourself. Fair enough, but I reserve the right to call you the instant it's done. I'll need your eyes on it as soon as it's out of the printer. It's a deal. Looking at the clock, I noticed we'd already spent quite a while chatting back and forth. Despite not having a set schedule of my own, I figured Seth may have had other places to go. Well, it's afternoon already. I don't want to keep you, if you're busy. I should get to it. The fresher the ideas are in my head, the more likely I'll be able to actually keep with it. He smiled up at me for a moment before we both began clearing the table, standing up and tucking in our chairs. Sheldon, thanks again for this. It's the most motivated I've been in quite a while, and it was good to spend some time with you. Same here. You're a very interesting person to be around, Seth. It's a nice change of pace. Only interesting? Oh man, okay, this could be either really good or really bad. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it like that. I don't want to be too forward. I certainly wouldn't be here if there was nothing more. I see, thanks. I'm really glad we got a chance to sit down and talk more, even if it did bogart most of the conversation. You've got my number, right? Give me a call if you have any questions or if you just like to chat. I think so? You called me, right? Let me just write it down so you don't lose it. I scribbled it down for it. Okay, and he put it in his pocket, smiling happily at the offer as he checked his notebook was secure one last time. I will make ample but hopefully not burdensome use of your opinion, Sheldon. Thank you. Oh, I almost forgot. I got this for you. I know how you liked that author and thought it would be a nice gift. When I handed him the novel, his eyes went wide. A smile spread across his face in an instant, and he looked back up at me, beaming. You got me a signed copy? I didn't even realize he was doing signings. Sheldon, this is the best thing I've ever gotten. Before I could react, he leapt up against me, wrapping his arms around me and pressing his lips to mine. We both began to blush after the moment of exhilaration began to fade. He quickly pulled away and glanced down towards the floor. Sorry, I didn't mean... Oh, okay. Let's... Ooh, God. What to do. This is very forward here. Might be given the wrong idea, but this might give him the wrong idea. Let's kiss him on the cheek. It's okay, Seth. I'm glad you're so excited. I leaned forward and gave him a peck on the cheek, watching him flush even redder, but keeping that smile wide. Well, I need to get going. Gotta keep the story fresh. We said our goodbyes, parting after a final lingering hug. As I watched him leave, I felt a sense of happiness I hadn't experienced in the past few weeks. Writing was a very important thing to him, and in the span of a cup of coffee and a cake, he'd wanted me to be a part of that. I hadn't been that important of a person to anyone but Kobe recently. Work had kept me busy, but without that, I'd begun to realize that I wanted something more. Maybe this could be that something. Either way, I'd need to be ready with some juicy gossip when I got home. Kobe will never stop pestering me. Alright, I guess got the achievement for testing the waters. Alright. I am going to call this episode there. That was a good first outing with Seth. And let's see here. Let's overwrite our old save. Okay, so I will see you next time. I will probably be doing another episode of this today, and also look for a couple episodes of Mountain Blade today, and I will see you all next time. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.